So if you go to a CFO and you tell them that you decreased turnaround time, they will say, okay, can you tell me how this is helping the business? So really tie your KPI, understand the metrics that the business care about, and connect localization KPIs.
Welcome to the Multilingual Content Podcast, where experts discuss international content management, product localization, and global expansion. I'm Caterina from Undertow. We create and manage localization programs for B2B SaaS companies so they can grow globally. Today, our founder, Nicola Calabrese, will be talking with Chiara Scaldaferro, Senior Localization Manager at GoStudent. In this episode, they will explore how to streamline and restructure localization programs, from using integrations between tools like Figma and TMS platforms to building hybrid AI human workflows that improve speed and scalability. Chiara also shares practical lessons from developing custom GPTs for SEO content, managing localization as a one-person team, and positioning localization as a strategic business driver. If you're looking for actionable ways to make your localization program more efficient, data-driven, and future-ready, this episode is for you.
Hi, Chiara, and welcome to the Multilingual Content Podcast. How are you today?
Hi, Nicola. I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good, pretty good. So sunny day, so cannot ask for anything more. And so today we're going to talk about setting up, actually restructuring our localization program, making it as streamlined and efficient as possible. But before we jump right into today's topic, would you mind introducing yourself a little bit for our audience?
Of course. I am Chiara. I am from Italy, but I'm based in Berlin. I am currently a Senior Localization Manager at GoStudent, online and offline tutoring company. And I've been there since 2023. And before I was a Localization Manager at Formlabs 3D printers. But I started off as a in-house translator for an agency in Portugal, translating from German into Italian, specifically technical documentation. So, yeah.
It's quite a journey all the time, yeah. And at GoStudent, I know you implemented some innovative processes around localization. So I was wondering if you can walk us through how technology integration have transformed your team's approach to multilingual content in general?
Yes. When I joined GoStudent, I spotted some areas where we could exploit a bit more the potential of the tooling we had. So Localize is the TMS we're using. And we also use a lot Figma to design for both marketing and brand and product. But we weren't using the integration that was available between Localize and Figma. And we did have a lot of use cases. Specifically, there is one campaign report that we do once per year, massive, for brand. It's called the Education Report. So it gives an overview about the future of education. We're talking about 12,500 words, a document that is written in English and needs to be translated into 4 languages. So you can imagine the workload. I thought that this was the perfect chance to use the integration. So the first step was to understand why we were not using it. So in the past, there were some blockers from a technology point of view, and then they were cleared out. So understanding the integration, testing it with smaller projects, and also making sure that the design for the report was ready for localization. So once the report, we had the outline, basically I used the integration to export the text into Localize, machine translate it, and then re-import it back to see if the design was reacting well. For example, text boxes, formatting of bold, or we needed to add character limitations. It was kind of a big project. But I have to say that it helped us save a lot of time, a lot of money, because we were outsourcing this task to an agency. We're talking about thousands of euros that we saved, but also a lot of hassle, both for myself and for the design team, because we moved from a file-based system. And if you need to edit anything from a file, you need to re-upload everything. And it's all more tedious. And a lot of, copy pasting time. we saved it up. So this was one big thing, the Figma localized integration for both. So starting off with marketing and brand, and then moved also for product. Another very interesting integration that was actually simpler than this one, but still impactful, was between Localize and Slack. So we use Slack as a communication platform, much more than emails. But I didn't have my stakeholders on Localize, so the TMS. What was happening is anytime there were queries from translators, I had to be the mediator, and I'm a one-person team. I didn't say that, but I'm a one-person team at GoStudent. So there was a lot of effort involved in managing queries, which I cared a lot about. I wanted translators to receive their answers. So with this integration, I basically make sure that translators' queries get sent to a Slack channel where every stakeholders, even stakeholders are not like the owners of the project, can see the question, and they can see the preview of the question. They have a link. If they have a localized account, they can directly answer, or they can give me the answer and I can do it for them. And also in that way, you have visibility on all the questions that come in. So I think it's also good for people to see the quality of questions that come in, and also to reflect on the quality of the source they provide. And then a big project that I worked on was basically shifting from a human first localization workflow to hybrid localization workflow. In 2024, I had zero AI involved, started testing different tools, and I landed in localized AI for different reasons that I can tell you more about later. And basically now I have a full hybrid of AI and AI post-editing that is managed by humans. And obviously you can think all the benefits of this, leaving aside the cost, but also the time. One of the problems I had, especially as a one-person team, was delivering on time. Specifically, if a lot of questions come in and then stakeholders maybe are slower at replying, or there are last-minute changes, it's very hard to keep track of deadlines. But because of this more automated process, which doesn't mean quality drop anyway, I am able to deliver earlier than the deadline. So that's, obviously a big change for a one-person organization team. Yeah, those are the big ones.
And I have a couple of questions about with Figma. Can you outline a little bit how it was before because you implemented, as you said, an integration between Localize, the platform where you manage your translations, and Figma, where the design are done. So integrated, so you can send content back and forth between the two platforms. How did it work before that?
So there are different types of projects you can create with Localize. You can upload, for example, a doc. You can upload a PowerPoint. You can use web API integrations with the product. For the Figma, they were just using sheets. So we had a multilingual file. You can imagine like a column with a key name, a column with the English source, if English was the source, usually it is, and then empty columns before, and then you download the version with the multilingual file. So obviously it's okay if you have small projects, but when you're talking about 12,500 words, that's not really sustainable. Plus, obviously, if the end, obviously you're not providing the customer with multilingual sheet. You need to copy paste the copy somewhere. So there's always this copy pasting element task involved.
Yeah. So you were getting a spreadsheet with all the translation, but then somebody had to copy paste that back into Figma. And the translation was happening with a visual reference. Like if it was provided, it was not within Localize, but it was maybe a PDF or a Figma link, right?
Yeah, exactly. No screenshots. Actually, now that you mentioned, something that's very good about the Figma localized integration is that while you send keys, you also automatically create screenshots that are linked to the keys. Then I always share the Figma link just because it's good to have the whole overview and also the journey, especially in product. But yeah, it's much easier for translators to have their reference directly in the key.
Yeah, because they will know exactly that string is referring to this bit in this screen. So it's especially, with product as well, it's very useful have that. And the other question I had was if there was any like improvement because you mentioned when you did the integration between Slack and Localize, getting queries in a Slack channel allowed also like to have visibility on the questions and maybe like highlight some potential issues with the quality of the, let's say, source content, so the English content. Is there any like anything in particular, any story that any improvement that was derived from that? So maybe the team was made aware, like the content team, there's this kind of things, or some improvement or change in the way they were creating the English content.
Yeah, I think that the main thing that came out is that sometimes there is lack of control on the source creation. Sometimes product managers or designers, UX designers have to create the text their own without a copywriter for different reasons. And surprise, the copy has issues, which is, it's not really their job. So this issue came up and there was some acknowledgement of the fact that it's always good to have a second pair of eye checking, still not have like necessarily a full-time copywriter, but native speakers double checking the copy, specifically if it's high risk, high impact copy. So obviously, if you are working with limited resources in terms of people or time, it's always good to prioritize the copy that is important and is going to be seen and have an impact with customers. So yeah.
That's good. Well, that's good because that means like when you do localization, sometimes it helps like fixing maybe some issues in the English that would have gone unnoticed. That even if you have somebody reviewing the copy, still happens, especially when you have like huge volumes going through, a lot of things happening at the same time. It's just, these things happen. So it's good like you get additional, depending on how many languages you get, maybe you have somebody in a market that noticed that and you can feed it back to English. So that's definitely a win-win. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And also having people understand that creating qualitative copy is not just it's not so easy. And then it reflects into all the languages you translate into. So showing the importance of good quality of copy in many languages.
Yeah. And on the other hand, like talking about, because I know like you develop a custom GPT for SEO copywriting to support your content team. So what were the key, if you can tell us a little bit about that, and what were the key challenges you encountered during this process?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So the goal of the project was to help the content managers of my team. We have one per country per market. So you can imagine they might want some help them create copy directly in their language and helping them using AI for that. They were using tools. So obviously an SEO tool to extract keywords and AI functionality to evaluate, test the performance of the blog posts they were writing. So we had already kind of 2 steps covered, the beginning and the end, but the middle part was still open. And they were using AI, of course, because in my company, they really encourage us to experiment specifically from 2024. But they didn't have necessarily a framework that was providing consistent results. So that was my idea to help them achieve consistent results. So what happened was I thought, okay, what tool can we use? Did some research. The winner was using the custom GPT option. Was winner because of costs. We already had like collaboration with OpenAI. Because of the collaboration features, it's easy to share with people and because it can be customized. So the second step was to, once understood that we wanted to use custom GPT, I had to customize the GPT. So I created one per country and started off with Italian. I'm Italian native speaker, so thought it would be a good idea to provide also some, feedback from my side besides the content managers. I added the instructions, added a knowledge base with the glossary, the red glossary, and provided some good examples of projects. And then also we classified the type of articles that we wanted to write, and maybe starting off with articles that have a lower complexity and then increasing in complexity, but also because in the prompt you want to say, hi, you are a copywriter, content writer for GoStudent, and you want to write a listicle, for example. So you need to have some information, classification. And then I put together we started with 10. So it was like a 10-step prompt process. So to use a layered prompting and avoid stuffing everything in one prompt. So if every prompt had one purpose, one task, and then we tested, lots of testing. So we had a lot of discoveries in this process, different challenges. First big discovery was that even though you use layer prompting, the more prompts we were giving and still telling the AI, don't change the outline, the word count of the previous output you gave, it was still changing and decreasing the quality. So first step was we need to cut down the amount of prompts. 10 is too much. Also, not all of them are actually performing as we wanted to perform. So we established the must-have 5 or 4. Another big discovery was the word count. AI just didn't like, at least ChatGPT didn't like to give us the amount of words that we were asking for. Specifically in the next prompt, maybe it would give it right in the first and then the next it would get lost. So word count is really something that was challenging for us. Same thing for SEO specific elements. So we would ask AI, for example, at one step, can you suggest CTAs and where to put them? And it was not really helpful. The URLs were not SEO optimized. So we decided that those kind of like SEO elements needed to stay manual for the content managers. Another discovery was the knowledge base. So even though I uploaded PDFs, so PDFs is always better in a custom GPT, also for the glossary, rather than a sheet or a doc. I uploaded these PDFs and then the AI wasn't really referring back to the knowledge base for the good examples of blog posts. So we found out that especially if you wanted to try something like content repurposing, which is, I don't know, you have an article about the 10 best apps to learn maths and you want to do it for learning English, it's better to upload it directly in the chat rather than relying only on the knowledge base. And another fun fact was that when you asked AI to mention naturally your brand, it was over-mentioning it. So opposite of what we wanted. So it was just better to have a first prompt saying, hi, you're a content writer for GoStudent. And in that way, it was kind of more natural. Still, I listed a lot of challenges. I think we had some results, and I think it did help the team to be faster in content production because, as I said, at least now they have a structure, a framework they can use. And at least now they know what is the potential of AI and what is doing well and what is not doing so well. So I think that was a big learning experience. So the Italian content manager, who was the first person to test with me, she said that she takes 1 hour less to create an article than before. So because of that, she can write 4 more articles per month. So now 12. However, the French content manager didn't have the same experience. So she's not finding it as useful as the Italian content manager. So yeah, it was a big learning experience. And even though maybe we didn't save so much of productivity, I think it was very helpful for both me and them to see what is the potential and provide some structure.
Sorry to interrupt your listening, but do you want to grow your B2B SaaS in international markets? Because every country is different, and what users value in one market doesn't necessarily matter in another one. At Undertow, we help B2B SaaS companies like yours succeed in their international expansion. We create customized localization strategies that address the unique challenges of each market. In this way, you can effectively attract, engage, and convert customers worldwide. Visit undertowlanguages.com to find out more. And now back to the show.
Yeah.
I think that will be helpful. And these things, with everything related to AI keeps changing, evolving. So it's probably going to get better over time.
Exactly.
So it's really it's probably never going to be finished. It's like a good start you build on top of that over time.
You keep testing and then see what's the new feature.
And and as well, they keep releasing new features as well. So you never know. There might be that one feature that's going to make a big difference later on. But still, it's a good start. And giving structure always helps in anything, I think. And my other questions was related to AI. Obviously, there's a lot of AI tools and usage that is becoming more common. Like, how do you balance automated solutions with human expertise, especially when it comes to like brand voice and cultural nuances across different cultures?
Yes. So as I mentioned, I have a background as a linguist, as a translator, also at university. So I'm always going to be appreciating the craft, and I will always want to have humans around me. So, but that's a bit, subjective experience. I did say that my current workflow process is AI plus human post editing. And this is what I have for most of my projects. I think that the role of human linguists is still absolutely crucial. My localization is inside brands, so I do have a lot of proximity to a lot of brand projects. And I really see the value of collaborating with freelancers and smaller agencies. For example, we had to create a brand name for a new, basically, department, very big opening for our company. And I did outsource this. And this is because also, for example, my company, we don't have country marketing managers. So this is not a luxury that every company has. And I think that linguists do have still a lot of power in supporting companies with this kind of like task. And another thing that I would say is, because of the volumes that I currently work with, I can afford to have linguists involved in every step. But I don't have AI only for now. But I think that if I would work with different conditions, which means tighter deadlines or higher volumes, I would apply a risk impact-based approach, which is something that I mentioned earlier. So I would focus the effort of humans where it's really necessary, which is creative work, brand, marketing, transcreation if needed, which is something that is always there specifically when you want to differentiate your content strategy with the different cultures, which is absolutely important if you want to resonate. So this is how I see, like, now I have AI plus human and I want to keep my humans around. If I had higher volumes or tighter resources, would focus the humans where they are most valuable and keep the collaboration for research. Could be called research, for example, this brand terminology or new terminology, specifically if the company doesn't have a country marketing manager. And maybe I'm Italian, so I have a say for Italian. But if I were not Italian and I would work with that language, I would definitely need to rely on a trusted person for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when it comes to cultural differences, like, hey, what works in one country, even if they speak the same language in a different way. You mentioned like Spanish is spoken in several countries. If you're going into a different one, you might need to adapt some things to local customs, let's say, and way of thinking, or pain point as well. Specifically regarding scaling, based on your experience, what strategic approaches have you found most effective in creating scalable market-specific content? So being able to go to scale, because sometimes companies struggle with that a little bit, scaling content across different countries.
Yes, I stand by what I mentioned earlier. In this case, we need to understand what are the markets that matter the most for the business. Also, maybe we want to push for a market that is not performing well. So what is the goal that we want to achieve? And based on that, allocate your resources. So you can't do anything with the same amount of depth. You can't allocate the same amount of resources on every country, every copy. So really, I would stick to this high impact, high risk matrix and would really have people involved where necessary. I could bring you an example from when I joined GoStudent. We had higher volumes. Specifically, we had very frequent big campaigns, global campaigns. So what was happening was that at the freelancers, we had an agency, but we were not really super happy with the agency quality or responsiveness. And so we would, during these campaigns, we had everybody overloaded. And that, with a campaign, you can't miss a deadline, but at the same time, you can't miss a product release. So what I decided to do was to onboard an agency that we could actually trust, that could do the heavy work during for these campaigns, but still have my what we called language leads. So the one person per market, one or two, that could have really a say with and help with brand voice and terminology. So they would help define a sort of campaign booklet, and then the agency would do all the rest of the work, while the freelancers, the main freelancers and language leads could still have capacity to work day-to-day tasks. So this was also something, that really worked for us in 2023 when I joined.
There's a mixed approach. So you have you have less, let's say, failure points. That makes sense. Yeah, to diversify. And when it comes to technology, you try different tools. Like, can you share some insights on like how you evaluate which tool is the right one? What are the right technological solution for your different localization challenges?
Of course. So how I evaluate is based on it has to be a data-driven approach, because quality usually it's subjective unless you have a framework. And then I involve people that I trust in this quality evaluation, and I would decide a minimum sample size. So for example, when my company encouraged everybody to use more AI, and obviously localization was one of the first teams that was asked to play around with it, I put together basically, just a scorecard with different categories of errors and different penalty points based on how critical an error was. And I asked my freelancers to evaluate the AI translation I made with different tools. So this was how I saw it. That was still 2024. As you mentioned, technology evolves fast. So this was still a bit more manual. How I would evaluate it now is leverage any automated or AI evaluation feature. For example, Localize has a couple, like in segment scoring, or now they're developing a new feature to score custom MT models. So RAG based technology. So AI evaluating itself, long story.
Yeah, just giving a little bit of context. So you get a translation done by AI, but it's like a score next to it, explain like what might be right or wrong about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you know where to focus.
So basically, without getting too technical, if before I used a data-driven, but still a bit manual approach to evaluate the different tools, now I would leverage a technology to evaluate itself and still have a second pair of human eyes to confirm. And how I select the right technologies, the technology that I want to use, especially as a one-person team, needs to have high quality. That's for sure, but needs to have me work in a centralized and seamless way. So, for example, during this testing process, I could not have translations happening outside of the TMS unless I would be able to integrate the TMS through tools like make.com or Blackbird and this AI. At the time, it was not possible for me to have this integration happening. But if I had to redo the test now, I would, for example, explore more, a workflow with this tool, make.com, which would pick up content from Localize, making it go through different tools and then give it back to me in Localize. For example, is also an idea that you suggested to me, Nicola, at some point, to have my own custom GPT on, for example, ChatGPT, and then connect it through make.com with Localize. So that's the thing. If you ask me again in 1 year, probably my answer will change, but I will still choose the same criteria to evaluate, which is have some numbers which remove the subjectiveness of quality, have centralization of work, help me work seamlessly and in an integrated way, and leverage technology. If there are new features, let's have technology evaluate itself.
In general, like, how do you think localization managers can position themselves as strategic partners who contribute to broader business objectives? So they don't just objectives for localization in itself, but more aligned with the business more in general. How would you recommend that, going about that?
Yes. So I think that I'm not going to say anything new here. At least for me, I've heard it, and this is so important. Localization metrics are operational and they are localization. So if you go to a CFO and you tell them that you decreased turnaround time, they will say, okay, can you tell me how this is helping the business? So really tie your KPI, understand the metrics that the business care about, and connect localization KPIs and connect your localization messaging for higher leaders, top leaders, to those KPIs. So really speak the language they understand. At the same time, make strategic allies from outside the team who can help you give numbers, metrics. You can also ask them what their pain points are. And you can if their pain points is something that is really important for the business, it can be a great starting point for your next quarter and for your next OKRs. So really, understanding the metrics, making strategic partnerships, which, these people can also become allies when it's about to ask for a budget for another project you want to have, because it's going to help them bring big results. For example, if it's in the sales team, a revenue generating team. Another thing that I would like to add is the fact that localization teams are some of the first people that have experimented a lot with AI. So they have a sort of advantage against other teams, advantage in knowing the technology. So I think that we need to be communicating this expertise to senior leaders and proposing new ways of handling AI, but not only for translations, for the whole company. So something that I see happening already in the next future is moving from the experimentation phase of AI to the governance phase. And localization teams could become, for example, multilingual AI operation teams. So they support the organizations setting quality standards, guardrails and standards, what good is, the definition of quality, help train the models from a linguistic point of view, but then they can also support other teams in this process, and then enable other teams to use AI, starting with multilingual content creation, but doesn't have to stop there, because let's be honest, everybody uses AI, but not everybody uses AI properly, safely, and with a structure. So this is how I see it.
Yeah, well, I agree. And there's going to be more and more like the 3 layers with content in general. Like multilingual content is going to be like less, let's say, risky content. It's probably get more and more automated. And then I'm thinking here mostly, let's say, help center articles, these kind of things, mostly going to be automated. Maybe just specific articles are going to be reviewed. Then you get a middle layer where you get a content that needs to go through a human, even though it's been through AI. And then a top layer that's going to be like created from scratch in the language, saving up resources and space, sometimes even just mental space from the first 2 layers will give more space for the 3rd layer. So that's and it's interesting. And the more complex, and all this is going to become like more complex system, and you always need somebody to manage it, to make sure that everything goes smoothly, because it doesn't always go smoothly. Yeah. And if you could go back in time and give yourself, like some years ago, give yourself one piece of advice about international content strategy, what would it be? Like, what advice would you give to yourself, like, I don't know, 5-10 years ago?
I've always been afraid to ask for help to sound stupid. And I think the first advice would be ask for help. Don't be afraid to sound and look stupid. And specifically, there are so many people in the network that are open to support, but even outside the network, inside your company. I had the best coaching experience at GoStudent. My mentor was a marketing manager, so he was not a localization person. But obviously, because he was so expert in what he was doing, he had many years of experience, and he was from another department, he was able to help me so much to see things from a different perspective, especially in the question, how do I become a strategic partner? How do I get up there and make sure that the people up there are listening to me? So, ask for help, search, do networking also, like, especially as a one-person team. I didn't, 10 years ago, I was not a one-person team, but, make sure to take advantage of the amazing community that is localization, and don't be afraid to ask for help. There's always someone that will answer your call. Yeah.
I agree. I completely agree. And I think it's a really good place to end the episode. So thank you so much for joining us on the Multilingual Content Podcast.
Thank you. I'm so flattered to be here, and I'm excited to see what you do next.
Thanks for joining us today. The Multilingual Content Podcast is powered by Undertow. We help B2B SaaS companies grow in any language. Get in touch if you want to know more. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new episode. If you want to support us, remember to give 5 stars to the podcast. See you next time.